So when we're looking for the square root of 20, the first thing we need to find out is what is the nearest whole number to the square root of 20 without going over. We know that 4 times 4 is 16, and we know that 5 times 5 is 25. So we know that the square root has to be somewhere between 4 and 5. So we'll start out by putting 4 up here. Okay. Now you want to square whatever number you put up here. In this case, 4 squared is 16. And you want to put that 16 down here. And we're going to subtract. And we're going to get 4. Now the next step is you have to take this number and double it and put it in parentheses with a little bit of space right here. It's kind of a sloppy 8. Now we're going to start adding decimals. So 0.00. We're going to bring those down to here to make this 400. We also need to put a decimal point right here. Now we need to find a single digit number that we will be putting here and here, where when the number we put here, when multiplied by this, is not greater than 400. I know that sounds kind of complicated, so let me just illustrate. Like if we put 1 here and 1 here, they have to be the same number. 1 times 81 is 81. That's well under 400. We want to get the closest to 400 that we can get without going over. So if I do some math in my head, I know this is going to have to be 80 something. And I know that 80 times 4 would give me about 320. So let's try 4. I'll put 4 up here and 4 here. Now what's 4 times 84? 84 times 4, 16, and 1632, 336. So we'll put 336 here, and that works because that's as close as we could have gotten without going over 400. If I put a 5 there, this answer would have been well over 400. So now 400 minus 336 is 64. Now we're going to bring down 2 more zeros. Bring these down. 6,400. You're going to take your 84, put it here, leave a space again, and now it's the same thing. We need to find a single digit number that we'll put here and here that will get us as close as we can get to 6,400 without going over. Okay, so we know this is going to be about 800 and we'll round up, we'll call it 850, and we have 6,400 here. So if I was to do something like, 7, let's just try 7. 84, 7, because I put in a 7 there and a 7 there, 847 times 7 is 49, 32, 59, 29. So that'll work. That's as close as we could have gotten without going over. 59, 29. Put our 7 there and our 7 there. 7 times this number is 59, 29. And you can't subtract it if you want, but in most cases, just rounding to 2 decimal places is good enough. So this gives you an approximation of what the square root of 20 is, 4.47. Remember, we originally said it was going to have to be between 4 and 5, and as we can see, it's almost exactly in between 4 and 5. It's 4.47. That's the square root of 20, rounded to the nearest second decimal place. Let's look at another problem. Okay, let's look at 55. We want to find the square root of 55 to 2 decimal places. And we need to start out by thinking of two numbers when squared that are close to 55, one smaller, one larger. Well, we know that the square root of 7, or 7 squared, sorry, is 49, and 8 squared is 64, and 55 is right in the middle of those two. So we know that the square root is going to be more than 7 but less than 8. So we have to put 7 up here. So now we have to square 7, and we just did that. 7 squared is 49, and we put the 49 here. Subtract, it'll give us 6. And now we take this 7 and we double it and we put it over here with parentheses and a space to put in our single digit here. We're going to bring down some decimals, make this 600. Now, what number could I put here and here that when we multiply that number by the number that will be created here will give us something close to 600 without going over? Well, I'm going to do 4. So if I had 144 times 4, that gives me 16, 17, 4, and 5, 76. So 576 minus 24, so that worked. 144 and 4. So now let's bring down a couple more decimals to here. So 2400, we're going to take this 144 in parentheses, leave a bit of space for a single digit. Now what number can we put here and here that when we multiply those two numbers together gives us something less than 2400? As close as we can get to 2400 without going over. Well, we already have our 1400 here, and this is only 2400, so it's going to have to just be 1 and 1. 1441 times 1, 1441. See, because if I did 2, then it would be 2800 something, and that's over 2400. So that'll work. You really don't have to do this math. You already have your approximation of the square root here. The square root of 55 rounded to the nearest second decimal place is 7.41.